Chapter 24, Lest We Forget, October 23rd, 1984. I could not stop watching 6:30 news. I was like a junkie, an addict. I knew exactly when to hit remote buttons to catch CNN, channels 6, 3, and 10 from Philadelphia, 2 and 12 in Delaware. I watched everything. I drove my family totally bonkers. I can't swear to you that this is accurate or true, but somehow I knew for certainty it meant the Marines were headed for a second tour in Beirut. I just knew it inside. I just knew it like I knew about the original explosions. I could not resist reacting publicly. The message inside me was so strong, but I had promised Kay I would behave. I called our congressional delegation, Joe's office. No, it's not true. They're not going back. Relax. Bill Roth called me back personally. I told him I was sorry for the dust-up in People magazine over the peacekeepers and thanked him for being my friend. He laughed at me. I called him a right-wing nut. He called me a born-again hippie. We really did like each other, even though we didn't agree on very much. I said, Bill, your conservative friends will never allow the names of the 241 Beirut heroes to be placed on the Vietnam Wall because of their claim in Washington, in the Reagan administration, that it was not a war, and you know it. He didn't respond. Whew. The Olympics are coming. I was sitting in an easy chair in front of the tube with my eyes closed, thinking enviously about Dickie and Joey Walters training in Japan, watching all the world athletes and coaches preparing the greatest combination of the best and the brightest human beings to ever exist on the face of the earth to fight in one karmic arena. The oldest athletic contest in the history of the world, the Olympics. Tom, quit watching the TV, says Kay cautiously. Kay, I'm not staring. I'm meditating. Now with my eyes open. I trained doing it by sitting in front of the TV. I catch myself doing it in court. I did it just the other day. It's fantastic. I can actually hear the prosecutor argue and the judge thinking at the same time. I was right on point of a legal issue, and when I spoke first, and they both laughed at me because they thought I was wrong. The judge told me to sit down, and suddenly they both corrected themselves. I never said a word. Something happened to them. They knew at the same instant I was right and they were wrong. She rolled her eyes as usual, thinking I'm bullshitting. We were both getting very testy with each other, and we feigned politeness. We both knew the wheels were coming off the little family wagon very soon. The Olympics were a welcome break for a year of intense war drama. Judo was a special late-night treat. It was not popular enough to be prime time. I watched the award ceremonies with complete, unrelenting envy. I was meditating constantly, musing constantly, and contemplating constantly the training issues for a man my age. Finally, the urge was too strong to resist. Screw it, I'm going for it. Why not? At least I can try. While protesting with damn mad, I got very friendly with an old gal next door who lived completely alone. Jane was her name. I called her Lady Jane. I called her in her late 60s. She spent most of her time in an iron lung or in a wheelchair in her life. She had polio at the age of 12. I loved to hear her sea stories about President Roosevelt at Warm Springs, but mostly it was questions about God that we talked, and the universe that we talked about, and mostly idle curiosity, going nowhere special, just both of us chatting. She also was curious about the dramatic effects of a pattern of self-hypnosis that I used, and she wondered about it on her health and her own well-being while I was teaching. I told her I called it Zazen. I asked permission from Lady Jane to teach her Zazen. I explained to her it was an accident it was an ancient martial arts relaxation technique practiced for thousands of years in the Orient and the Middle Eastern countries. I insisted there's nothing particularly special about the pattern I used. I learned my pattern by visiting the Edgar Cayce Foundation in Virginia Beach. It's an easy to understand hypnosis induction pattern. After a brief coaching, all individuals I teach are led to go within by Zazen to their own internal universe, their own imagination. I'm out of it at that point, and they're into it totally alone. I make absolutely no specific suggestions when I lead or guide in Zazen. Ancients named Zazen various religious-sounding names, but frankly, it's just a relaxation technique. Learn to voluntarily slow down the brain waves, we have 4 of them, and focus on one of them at a time, with me operating as the guide in the beginning and teaching the individual how to reach all the other levels. There's only 4. The 4 brain waves, as documented by EGGs, are beta, that's fully awake, as I am now talking to you, aware and focused, and you're listening. Alpha, that's light daydreaming, unfocused but very aware, sort of like when you're driving and you forget you go over a bridge, or you're reading, you forget what page you're on. Then there's theta, which is deep meditation. Deep meditation is where we dream. We do it every night, 5 or 6, 7 times a night. And then there's delta, which is the deep sleep. There are as many variations of these brainwaves as there are stars in the sky, but they are grouped into these 4 specific vibrational ranges that all operate together. This information is documented by science and medicine, and it's very well known. This is not a mystical thing. Jane said, I wonder how the ancients knew about the brainwaves without EEGs. She got me. I had no idea how that happened. Impatiently, look, Jane, just close your eyes and relax and make contact with the universe. The hardest part is relaxing and letting the universe talk back to you. So let's practice. Eventually, after much practice, I asked her, you want to really go for the gold? Sure, what do? We do Zazen together in the same room, on exactly the same subject, with exactly the same intent. We put together a spiritual spin into our effort. We did this for a week, and Lest We Forget was born. We both saw our own version of one candle and a guard at the same time. We both shouted it when we awoke at the same time. We knew we were connected to something bigger than us. Both of us babbling with excitement about our own version of what we saw. We'll get buttons made, I said. Way back when, I gave Jane a toy to play with. It was developed in the 14th century. It is alleged to honor Mary, the mother of Jesus. I told Jane it was developed for calming down nervous people. It is called a rosary. I taught her how to use it. It will help you meditate. By repeating the mantra repetitively, it controls your adrenal glands and the flow of adrenaline in your bloodstream. It calms your nerves. It focuses your intent. Our mutual meditation plan also requires both of us refuse any help whatsoever from anyone else unless they volunteered. The first volunteer was a Teamster buddy, Big Joe, a big tough warrior type, very supportive during Damn Mad. He already knew a lot about fear. He was convicted of mob-type felonies and was awaiting an appeal. He had a very severe heart problem and he had a bypass. He was living right on the edge of life and death. He saw me daily as a union lawyer and he knew I was a wreck most of the time, except when I was in court or during arbitration. Big Joe sensed my nervousness. He knew it was ancillary to my union lawyering, and he knew it was strictly personal. I could relax with him and let my guard down around Joe. I helped him with kid problems before and stayed very close to him through all the court trials. Joe instinctively understood where I was coming from. He actually had a very spiritual nature. We became close personal friends. We loved calling each other mob-type nicknames and jerking each other around in public, pretending we were under secret surveillance by the feds. He was a physically large monster of a man, and we'd pretend to confront each other threateningly with made-up mob voices, pretending we were being recorded even when no one else was in the room. It kept our humor up. I asked Bill Ward, my favorite PR button expert, to make up 500 white buttons with Lest We Forget, October 23rd, 1983. White buttons with black print. I wore one into the Teamster's office boldly on my lawyer suit, smiling at Joe. Joe snickered. "What's the button for?" "Oh, shit, yeah, I remember that date," he said. Knowing I was up to one of my protest scams, glancing at the air vent in the corner, nodding toward it, with his head pretending Big Brother was listening, and laughing. I glared like a consigliere at his grinning face, and he said in a raspy, exaggerated mob voice, "I'm gonna be at Rodney Square on October 23rd, and I'm gonna light a candle for peace to remember the Marines who died in Lebanon." And I said, "If you come, that's your business. Here's a pin, Turkey. Wear it." Joe put on the pin. The plan was launched. I handed him a bunch from my pocket. I said, "Joe, don't say anything about the pin. Just wear it until someone asks, 'What's the date for?' Or, 'I know that date from somewhere.' Then bingo, it'll hit them. That's the flash of recognition and the flash of opportunity to explain what we're doing. Say only, 'I told you no one would remember the Marines that died in Lebanon. They won't even put their names on the Vietnam Wall. Everyone will be embarrassed and won't refuse to wear the pin. Maybe some will even decide to come and will tell others. And it's a person-to-person huff and puff campaign technique. Lady Jane will phone local churches. She's in a wheelchair, that's her only weapon. I will say only that I will be there." She contacted all the organized religions in Newcastle County and simply told them about the meeting in Rodney Square to honor the warriors killed October 23rd, 1983. She asked them to announce it from their pulpits the Sunday before that date. But no press release. Presidential elections were coming. Everyone on both sides of the peacekeeper issue were skittish and very nervous. Folks wanted to know who's behind the event and what's it all about. Lady Jane refused to give any information, only the same old story. Just a gathering of an honor guard to remember the Marines that died in Lebanon last year. No politics involved. Bring one candle for peace.